Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, I used to be stronger than this? You're not alone. Across America and Europe, millions of seniors over 65 quietly lose their strength each day, without even realizing it. It doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in slowly. Climbing stairs becomes harder. Grocery bags feel heavier. You stop walking as far, and little by little, the body that once moved with confidence now tires easily, stumbles more often, and heals more slowly. This isn't just normal aging. This is muscle loss, and left unchecked, it can steal your independence, your health, and your joy. But here's the good news. It's not too late. In this episode of Elderly Reflections, we'll uncover 5 silent signs that you are possibly losing muscle mass. And more importantly, how to fight back. These insights are backed by science told through real stories, and shared with deep respect for the strength that still lives within you. If you care about your future mobility, dignity, and strength, this is the video to watch. Don't forget to subscribe to Elderly Reflections and turn on the bell icon. That way, you'll never miss another story of elderly wisdom, senior health, and real-life inspiration. It often begins so quietly that you almost miss it. A jacket that used to fit snug you now shrug off with ease. The pair of pants, once form-fitting, now fall loose. Almost accidentally. Mary, 72, from Brattleboro, Vermont, experienced it one crisp morning as she stood in front of her mirror preparing for local book club meeting. Her favorite floral dress, one that used to sit perfectly at her waist, now gaped and hung awkwardly. I thought the dryer must have shrunk it weird, or she joked, slipping into another outfit with the same disappointing result. But it wasn't the dryer, it was something more profound. Mary hadn't taken up new exercise routine, hadn't tried diet. Her meals were the same wholesome stews and oatmeal she'd loved for years. Yet her clothes were looser and not in welcome way. She was losing muscle, the quiet backbone of her strength. This phenomenon is known medically as sarcopenia, gradual and often unnoticed decline in muscle tissue and function tied to aging. The name comes from Greek. Sarx meaning flesh and penia meaning loss, and that's exactly what it is. Slow erosion of the very substance that keeps us upright, mobile, and independent. While many experts consider it inevitable after 65, it doesn't have to be. The National Institute on Aging notes that, left unchecked, seniors can lose up to 3.5% of lean muscle mass every decade, and that rate accelerates after age 70. What makes sarcopenia so deceptive is that weight on the scale may barely budge. You might see the same number, or even gain little. That's because fat often replaces lost muscle. You're not shrinking. You're shifting. And because fat is less metabolically active, your body starts to slow down in ways that feel unrelated. You get colder more often, digestion changes, blood sugar rises, the scale is silent, but inside, your tissues are speaking. If you listen, for Mary, that message came in small but persistent ways. Her arms, once strong from gardening and lifting her grandkids, felt softer. Her legs tired after short walks to the post office. More than anything, she began to feel fragile, not sick, not broken, just less. Her muscles were hollowing out, not just in her arms and legs, but in her metabolism. Without that deep reserve of lean tissue, her body produced less heat. She began layering up even in spring. Her son commented on her rounded shoulders, her posture beginning to slump like someone carrying heavy bags she couldn't oppose. The tea put down. She brushed it off. Just age, she told herself, but something gnawed her confidence. One afternoon, as she stepped out to collect a newspaper, her foot caught a slick patch of leaves. She fell. Not hard, but hard enough that she couldn't get up. Alone, embarrassed and aching on the concrete, Mary had her moment of clarity. I lay there, she recalls, feeling more embarrassed than her. But I knew then I wasn't just old. I was weak. That was the beginning of her awakening. Strength isn't vanity, it's independence. Being able to rise from chair, walk unassisted, carry groceries, lift grandchildren, reach for the top shelf. It's also metabolic resilience, preserving blood sugar, protecting bones, maintaining posture. Without it comes fatigue, imbalance, and vulnerability. A retired physiotherapist once shared on Elderly Reflections, muscle is the last defense between senior and hospital bed. And when it's gone, it takes more than just rest to bring it back. Now consider Frank, 69, retired electrician from Ohio, whose pride was fixing things. The kind of man who never called handyman, who still had the first toolbox his father gave him at 17. But one winter morning, tying his boots felt like mountain time. His legs gave out. He gripped the table to steady himself. I was winded, he said, like I'd just walked a mile. Climbing stairs left him breathless. Carrying groceries meant he had to sit down afterward. Even making the bed became a chore that stretched into midday. At first, he thought it was just the flu, but weeks passed, then months. The fatigue didn't fade. Instead, it grew roots. He entered what health professionals call the frailty spiral. Fatigue begets inactivity, which breeds further weakness. Cycle that accelerates silently. Frank didn't notice how drastically his energy dropped until everyday tasks became monumental. He started skipping outings, with friends saying, "I'll rest today, maybe next time," but the next time never came. Physical decline carried an emotional toll. I used to feel strong. Now I feel slow, embarrassed, like I'm letting life pass me by, he confessed. My wife would ask if I wanted to go for a walk, and I'd say no. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't think I could keep up. Studies from Harvard Medical School show that persistent fatigue during daily activities without another cause is a key predictor for hospitalization among older adults. But what's more heartbreaking is that emotional decline often shadows physical weakness. Seniors lose not only strength, they lose confidence, social connection, purpose, and joy in movement. Heartfelt viewer of elderly reflections once posted, "The hardest part isn't being tired, it's knowing I used to be more." That line stuck with Frank. It echoed when he sat alone while his grandkids played outside, when he declined invitations, when he caught his reflection slouching toward the bathroom. But the real alarm came one gray morning when he reached for the stair railing and missed. On the stairs to the basement, he slipped and nearly fell. His Labrador, Buddy, barked and nudged at his side, sensing something was wrong. Frank says it wasn't the fall. It was how powerless he felt in that moment. "I was a man who used to climb poles for a living," he said quietly, "and now I almost couldn't climb the stairs." He knew then. Muscle fatigue wasn't just about getting older. It was warning. A message from the body, not to scold, but to ask for help. If your clothes are slipping off, your body feels unfamiliar despite unchanged habits, or carrying everyday objects suddenly drains you. You're hearing whispered alerts from your muscles. These are the silent red flags of muscle decline. Left unaddressed, they lead to imbalance, isolation, hospital visits, and eventually life that feels smaller than it should. But there is another path, one of awareness, one of action, and in the next part, we'll explore two more signs. The ones you can see in the mirror and feel in your walk. We'll share the real stories of seniors across Europe and North America who recognized the signs and found their way back. Not just to strength, but self-respect and joy. The third sign isn't something you can point to in the mirror, but it echoes in every step you take, every time you reach, bend, or rise. It's not just about movement. It's about the quality of that movement. The way you walk across a room becomes more cautious. The way you stand up from a chair begins to feel like lifting weight. These changes don't always feel alarming at first. They feel like just another off day, until you realize those days are coming. New normal. Eileen, 76, retired librarian living near Lake Michigan, remembers the first time she felt something was off. "I used to stand all day behind desks," she said. "Now, I found myself grabbing countertops just to steady myself while brushing my teeth." At first, she thought maybe it was just fatigue, but as the months passed, she noticed her steps shortening. Walking across the kitchen felt like navigating a hallway on moving ship. She wasn't dizzy, just unsteady, and that was scarier. This creeping instability is tied directly to loss of lower body strength, especially in the thighs and hips. These are foundational muscles, the ones that stabilize your body as you move. When they weaken, your center of gravity shifts, and suddenly, simple tasks like standing still become efforts in balance. Eileen's world began to shrink. Not because she wanted it to, but because she was afraid of falling. "I skipped the garden this spring," she said quietly. "Didn't trust my knees. This fear is not unfounded." According to the World Health Organization, falls are the second leading cause of accidental injury deaths worldwide, with adults over 65 being the most vulnerable. Once you fall, your risk of falling again doubles. But what's often ignored is that the body gives warnings far before the fall happens. Through shifts in posture, slow reactions, and moments of hesitation. We see this vividly in subtle behavior. Placing both hands on your thighs to push yourself up from chair. Needing to rock forward before getting out of bed. Avoiding certain shoes because they feel too loose. These are all compensations. Your body working around weakness. And compensations are the body way of saying, "Help me before it gets worse." Then there's posture. The fourth silent sign. While many brush it off as poor habit for older adults, it's often a reflection of lost strength. Henry, 82, from Glasgow, Scotland, retired train mechanic, described it this way. I used to walk into a room and people noticed. Now I feel like I blend into the background. He wasn't trying to hide. His posture had curled inward, his spine hunched, his neck leaned forward, and it wasn't pain that caused it. It was muscle weakness, plain and simple. What Henry experienced is what geriatricians call age-related kyphosis, often caused not by the bones themselves, but by the slow atrophy of the core and spinal extensor muscles. These muscles keep you upright. When they weaken, gravity wins, and with each inch forward the head moves, the strain on the spine multiplies. For every inch your head juts forward, your upper spine bears 10 more pounds of stress. It's like hanging bowling ball on thin wire. Henry noticed it in photos. I looked tired even when I wasn't, like life had worn me down. His posture wasn't just physical concern. It affected his breathing, his confidence, and even how people treated him. People speak louder around me now, he said. Like I'm fragile. I'm not. I just feel folded in on myself. Research backs this up. Study from ULA found that older adults with poor posture were more likely to report depression, reduced lung function, and digestive issues. Why? Because posture isn't just structural. It's functional. Poor posture compresses the lungs, reduces oxygen intake, slows digestion, and even impacts mood through nervous system pathways. And then there's how posture affects how others see you, and how you see yourself. Eileen confessed she stopped going to her bridge club because she hated how hunchy she looked. I felt like I looked older than I felt, like I was fading. It wasn't about vanity. It was about dignity. The truth is, strength changes the way you move through the world, and the way the world moves around you. When you start to shift your balance, hunch your back, or hesitate at curbs, the world senses it. People offer you more help, but they also subconsciously treat you differently, less capable, less seen. That can be just as painful as the weakness itself. So when you notice shuffle in your walk, slouch in your shoulders, or the creeping fear that you're not as steady as you once were, don't dismiss it as just old age. These are muscle signals, and unlike diseases that announce themselves loudly, this one whispers. But it's not too late. There's one final sign, the one that most people ignore until it's too late. Not because it's invisible, but because it feels so normal. You start sleeping more, sitting longer, taking the elevator instead of the stairs, not out of laziness, but out of something more persistent, more draining, constant low energy that doesn't go away with rest. It's the kind of fatigue that seeps into everything, until you no longer question it. You assume it's just part of being in your 70s or 80s. That's what Marvin, 80 from Connecticut, believed. Former firefighter and once an avid walker, Marvin began spending more time in his recliner than on his feet. They crept up on me, he shared. One day, I realized I'd gone 3 weeks without leaving the house. He thought he was just tired, but what he was actually experiencing was the metabolic cost of losing muscle. What many don't realize is that muscles are more than just engines of movement. They're engines of life. They regulate blood sugar, influence hormones, manage body temperature, and even affect our thinking. Muscle is the body pose. It has second brain. And when it fades, so does clarity, vitality, even personality. Marvin noticed it in small ways, forgetting names more often, losing appetite, feeling colder even on sunny afternoons. But here's where the story shifts, from decline to determination. Marvin made one simple promise to himself. Every time he finished reading a newspaper page, he would stand up and walk to the kitchen. No rules, no fitness tracker, just movement. That simple act, one step, one paper at a time, opened loop in his body that had been closed for years. He began adding more to his mornings. Instead of skipping breakfast, he started with 2 hard-boiled eggs, or a slice of whole grain toast with peanut butter and banana. He didn't know it at the time, but he was unknowingly restoring key missing link. Protein. Research from the University of Arkansas shows that seniors over 65 often consume 30% less protein than their bodies actually require to maintain muscle. Without enough, your body begins to break down what little muscle remains, especially overnight. Feeling steadier, Marvin dusted off 2 cans of soup and began lifting them as makeshift dumbbells. It wasn't about lifting heavy. It was about reminding his muscles they mattered. Resistance, even light, sends signal to the body. Keep building. I still need you. It's this principle that underlies all successful strength recovery in older adults. Consistent, intentional resistance, even if it's just your own body weight. And it didn't stop there. Marvin also learned that hydration was a hidden enemy. As we age, our sense of thirst weakens. By the time we feel thirsty, we're already behind. Dehydrated muscle is weak muscle. It fatigues faster, cramps easier, and struggles to recover. So Marv began drinking a glass of water every morning before his walk. But I started to feel more awake, he said. Less stiff, less foggy. Another shift happened in the sunlight. Marvin's doctor suggested stepping outside each morning, even if just for 10 minutes. Sunlight activates vitamin D, which helps the body absorb calcium and supports nerve-muscle communication. 2020 meta-analysis in the Journal of Aging and Health confirmed that older adults with low vitamin D levels have higher rates of falls, fractures. For Marvin, that morning ritual became more than medicine. It became mindfulness. But perhaps the most powerful change wasn't physical at all. It was the way Marvin began to see himself. He started pressing his back against the wall each morning to realign his posture. It was uncomfortable at first. Years of leaning forward made it feel unnatural. But as he stood there, chest open, chin tucked, he felt something he hadn't in a long time. Pride. The act of standing tall wasn't just for balance. It was for dignity. I felt like myself again, he whispered, like I was still here. Marvin's story echoes thousands of others. Seniors across America and Europe rediscovering strength not through gyms or pills, but through daily decisions. Woman in Arizona, who joined Walking Club at 85, said it best. I didn't want to grow old sitting down, and that's the lesson at the heart of this reflection. Aging is inevitable, but weakness doesn't have to be. You don't need personal trainer. You need consistency. You don't need perfect body. You need body that can still serve your life. You don't need youth to be strong. You need will. When Eileen began doing 10 chair squats every morning, she didn't see results immediately. But by the third week, she stood up faster. By the sixth, she stopped grabbing the armrests, and the first time she reached into high covet. Without fear, she cried, not because it was hard, but because it had once felt impossible. Mary, after her fall, began adding Greek yogurt with berries to her breakfast, along with 20-minute gentle resistance video online. Frank, the retired electrician, started lifting his grocery bags in 3 sets of 10 before putting them away. Henry from Glasgow, who once walked hunched like ? Practiced standing against wall for 2 minutes a day. By spring, he was attending church again, taller, more confident, and smiling. And they all shared the same moment. That quiet victory where strength returned, not in pounds lifted, but in life resumed. So if you've made it this far, maybe you see pieces of yourself in them. Maybe you've noticed the signs, the looser clothes, the cautious steps, the deep fatigue. Maybe you've sat longer than you planned, or stopped doing things you once loved. Not because you don't want to, but because your body quietly asked you not to. But it's not too late. Your muscles may be whispering, but they're still listening. You can begin today with one intentional movement, one glass of water, one plate of real food, one stretch against wall. And with each day, those small choices compound. Not just into strength, but into confidence, purpose, and joy. Because you are not too old. You are simply not done yet. So maybe today is the day you choose to stand a little taller, to move, not because you should, but because you still can. Maybe it's the day you remember that strength isn't measured by muscle. It's measured by motion, by intention, by the quiet decision not to give up on yourself. The silent signs of muscle loss after 65 don't define your story, but they can become turning point. If you let them, you've heard the voices of Mary, Frank, Eileen, Henry, and Marvin. Not because they're extraordinary, but because they did something extraordinary. They listened to their bodies, and they answered back with hope. If this story spoke to you, if you saw yourself somewhere in these words, then we invite you, gently and sincerely, to stay with us. Subscribe to Elderly Reflections for more real stories, senior health insights, and life lessons from the elderly that matter. Leave a comment and let us know, where are you watching from? What sign resonated most with your journey? Your story matters. Your strength still lives inside you. And your next chapter might begin today.